Hi and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is another video in the series where I'm building a tribute guitar to my Westone Pantera X390. In the previous episode I started working on this body and hopefully by the end of this video I have this guitar ready for final sanding and finish. So let's start by taking a look at this radiusing jig, and I made this jig off camera because while I was making it I was not quite sure what I was going to do. I had a rough idea about the principle for this jig, but yeah, it was too messy a process so to say to share with you guys in a good quality video. But I think if I show you the principle behind this jig, you should be able to figure stuff out for yourself if you want to do a similar effect on your guitar builds as well. So the basic principle behind this radiusing jig is a router sled or a fretboard radiusing jig. If you look on internet, especially Pinterest, for radiusing jig, you can find very similar jigs. Usually it consists of a base plate and two convex or concave guides on either side, and some kind of carriage. I made mine carriage out of my previous truss rod routing jig, and right in between these two rails I can fit my Triton router snugly in the center. On the back there are some wheels and some bearings just to help guide the entire carriage along the guide rails. And when I insert my router and use the jig and let it run along these guide rails, it should follow this radius exactly. The radius for these guide rails depend on the radius, the curvature you want to give your guitar body, and there's a lot of maths involved, and I did it wrong a couple of times to figure out this radius and how high this guide rail should be. And I went for the approach to make this guide rail exactly the same height as my guitar body blank. So this jig is specially made for this blank, and if I want to do another guitar, or I have to create a guitar body blank with exactly the same height, or adjust the height of these guide rails, or do something else. But for now this jig is only suitable for this guitar body shape and height. And to route the concave shape on the back of the guitar, I also made some concave guide rails, and I can easily just loosen these wing nuts, and I can just remove the convex guide rail and replace it. And now with the router carriage I can also route the concave shape on the back of the guitar. So the main challenge will be, of course, holding down the workpiece while one of the sides is already been rounded over. Yeah, I think I'm going to start with making the convex shape on the top of this guitar and then flip it around. And by doing the top first, hopefully my center line will be still nice and consistent and yeah, nice and straight. So when I clamp down the body upside down to route the back of the guitar, I can use some wedges along the edge to make sure the back of the guitar is still nice and parallel to the base of the jig. Use some clamps and some screws through the cavity for the tremolo to hold everything in place, and then route the concave shape on the back of this guitar. And at this point, yeah, this is a very scary part in this guitar build. This is a make or break. If something goes wrong, yeah, most likely I have to scrap this guitar body and start over. And if everything goes as planned, and I've been planning this for a couple of weeks now, yeah, then I'm one happy guitar builder. So yeah, let me secure this body to the jig, set up the camera and start routing the top of this guitar body. And because I really don't want it to move, I'm also going to secure it like so. The front of the guitar is routed, a nicely convex shape, and I'm not going to show you the end result yet. First I'm going to route the back of this guitar, and I went ahead and I've reset the jig to route the concave back, and as you can see the body is nice and secure. Clamping it down was a bit of a challenge. What I first did was clamp it temporarily in place so the center line of the body lined up with the center line of the jig. Then I used several pieces of wood to secure the body in place, and finally in the spring cavity for the tremolo I made a block of wood, use a big screw all the way through the cavity for the tremolo to secure the body downwards onto this jig, and it's very firm in place. I made sure it can't rock back and forward. So now let's take the carriage, the router, and start routing the back of this guitar body. Yeah, this should do it. The concave back looks awesome. Let's check the depth of the spring cavity, and especially the little edge meant for the cavity cover. It should be 3 mils thick, just over, so that's perfect. The shallowest part is just over 3 mils thick, so this gives me plenty of extras for sanding and such, and yeah, and I can still have a decent enough thickness for the cover plate. So yeah, I'm going to real quick sand the back of this body, and then I can start routing the control cavity before shaping the body even further. So just a quick little pass with 120 grit sandpaper just to remove all the marks from the routed bit, just to make the piece more presentable. I'm not going to sand it all the way just yet, because there's a lot of carving still to do for the body to heel transition, and of course the round over for all the edges. So yeah, just a quick pass with 120 grit sandpaper to make the piece somewhat presentable. Like so. Now that the curvature of the body is in and I've sanded the body to a somewhat presentable state, I can now finally start routing the control cavity. And yeah, I don't know if you remember these templates. I made these templates for the control cavity in, I think, the first or second episodes in this series, and in that episode I also explain in depth why I had to wait with routing the control cavity until the curvature of the body was done. So yeah, now I'm going to try and figure out how to attach these templates to the body and start routing the control cavity. After removing a lot of material from the control cavity, I'm straight away going to drill the holes needed for the control knobs. I'm going to do this with the template attached to the back of the body, and yeah, the template is at the average angle for the curvature. So I hope by drilling these 3 holes this way, they will be at the correct angle, so the control knobs will penetrate the top also at the correct angle. So yeah, fingers crossed, I thought this through well enough so I can drill these holes without further issues later on when assembling this guitar. Wow, this didn't go according to plan. I had an accident with the router, something that hasn't happened to me before, especially with the Triton routers. When I was routing this cavity, I didn't notice the router bit loosening in the router, and right about here I didn't notice it. It shut, the guide bearing shut under the template, and I didn't notice it until I was a bit further along when I was routing against the grain right here, and the router bit shut from the router in and dug itself into the wood, tearing out a huge chunk here in the cavity and in the bottom here as well. It was really stuck here in the wood. Yeah, so luckily there's no major damage, but yeah, here it's not as clean as I would have liked, but I can maybe clean it up. But especially here underneath the template, yeah, it isn't as clean. So luckily this is a guitar for myself and not for a client. Otherwise I had to, yeah, perhaps try to fix it or start over again. This is something I usually don't want to see on my guitars. So all the routing for the control cavity should be done, but before I remove this template, I'm going to check if the cover plate will fit. And this is the template to make the cover plate, and it looks to fit just fine, so I can remove this template and start cleaning up my mess. Luckily I've managed to clean up the control cavity to some extent, and yeah, I think once it's painted with shielding paint, it's possible, especially because this is a prototype guitar just for myself. If this happened on a client's guitar, of course I would either make new templates and route the control cavity slightly bigger so the damage would disappear, or I would have to start all over depending on the extent of the damage and if it's repairable or not. But yeah, for my personal guitar this will do just fine and I can continue. So I'm not sure what to do next. I can either carve the edges of the body, so round over all the edges and get more to the final shape of this guitar body, or I can start making these control cover plates, and I think it makes more sense to first make these cover plates, to be honest. So yeah, so first I'm going to tidy up the workshop, then I'm going to take a cup of coffee and decide on what I'm going to do next. A broom. To give these cover plates the same contour as the back of the guitar body, I can insert them into the back of the guitar, and they have a very tight fit, so they should stay in place. So I can use once again my radius jig and my router and very carefully carve the back of these cover plates to match the curvature of the back of the guitar. I left these cover plates ever so slightly proud from the surface, just at 0.2 of a mil above the surface, so I can now use my leveling beam and send them flush with the back of the guitar. And just like that, the control cover plates are in and nicely flush with the back of this guitar body. Next up is rounding over all the edges, do some final carving and start preparing the body to heel and body to neck transition. Yeah, I'm not sure how to go about it at the moment. So yeah, especially for this edge, it's basically at the wrong angle. It should be perpendicular to this curvature, and now it's perpendicular to the original blank, so to say. So I have to change this angle, and I think what I want to do first is use my spindle sander and correct these edges first, so I have a better understanding what needs to be done. You have to start somewhere. One thing I shouldn't forget, but of which I'm a bit hesitant and I'm not sure on how to do it, is the hole for the output jack. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. If I could make a jig to keep everything aligned and keep my drill nice and perpendicular, but yeah, without getting very complicated, I didn't know how to do it other than just take my cordless drill, take a 12mm drill bit, keep an eye on everything, and just take a leap of faith and drill the hole. This looks good, but is it? Looks real good, to be honest. Yeah, there's a lot of shaping to do and a lot of sanding to get rid of all the tool marks and to get a nice and consistent round over. And to be honest with you guys, I really underestimated how much work this round over would be, and to get it all nice and consistent. So yeah, the next couple of days will be spent on a lot of sanding. Rounding over the entire body took much more effort than I anticipated, but I'm nearly there. The only thing left to do is the neck to body transition, but of course to be able to carve everything and blend everything together, I first need to glue in the neck. So off camera I did the first pass of rough sanding, and just in time I realized I still needed to widen the hole for the output jack, so I just did that. And now it's time to, of course, glue in the neck. And before I go ahead and glue in the neck, I always double check the fit of the neck, of course, and the string height. This is the last possibility for me to adjust either the heel of the neck or the neck pocket to get to the correct string height. And I always double check the fit and everything before committing to the glue up. So my straight edge, I'm looking for approximately 8 millimeters at the scale length, and I'm pretty much there. I also check the neck joint, the fit here, and I can see I have to take a bit of the edges because there's a tiny gap in the middle of the heel. So take a leveling beam, not much at all. Just to make sure I have the perfect neck joint, because I'm going to carve and I don't want any gaps to show or a lot of glue to show when carving. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to gather up some stuff and I'll be right back to glue up this neck. So time to really glue in the neck now that the string height is correct. So the heel is perfectly flat and adjusted. I made sure the sides of the neck are nice and clean, and I still have a reasonable tight fit, but not too tight, so I can have some room for glue, so to say. And of course I made sure the neck pocket is nice and clean. There's no dust and debris left in the pocket. So yeah, the only thing left to do is put some glue in the neck pocket and press in the neck. And right here I've got some clamps laying standby, as well as some clamping coils to help me glue in the neck. So here we go. Always a bit nerve-wracking, I think, but here we go. Yeah, nice and tight fit. A filler block to help me press in the end of the neck. And a secondary clamp. I used a bit too much glue. There's a lot of squeeze out, but hey, I still have some carving to do.
whole lot of squeeze out. I'm going to remove this clamp for a moment and clean up some of the squeeze out so I can check if the neck is in properly. Yeah, after cleaning up all the glue, I redid the clamps and I don't know what happened. I usually don't use that much glue, but yeah, I might have gone overboard this time. But nonetheless, I have a very nice neck joint right now, which I can leave to cure overnight. And once the glue is dried, I can start carving the body to neck transition. And here we are, it's the next day, and to be honest with you guys, I couldn't help myself, and early this morning I already removed the clamps so I could take a peek at the neck joint and get a feel for what this guitar is going to end up like. And I'm very pleased how it looks thus far, although I must say the curvature of the body could have been a bit more extreme, but unfortunately my body blank wasn't thick enough to do a more extreme curvature on the body. But yeah, it's looking pretty good, and now it's time to carve the body to heel transition. So I've secured the guitar to this little jig. I've made sure the neck is nicely supported, the body is fully supported, it can't move anywhere, hopefully. And now I can take my Iwasaki carving files and start blending in the body with the neck and do the final transition for the heel. Of course, I also could have used gouges instead of my carving files to do the carving, but I'm not very proficient with gouges, so I'm going to use my Iwasaki carving files and carve this transition. So first I'm going to mark where I approximately want the contour of the carve to start, so it blends nicely in with this round over right here. Yeah, I think something like so. So yeah, let's start carving. And I've never done this to this extent, so yeah, fingers crossed. And here's the guitar all nicely carved and sanded and ready to take on some finish, which of course I will be working on in the next episode. So if you don't want to miss that episode, make sure you are subscribed to my channel and you got your notifications turned on so you get notified when I upload something new. If you liked this episode, yeah, of course you can leave a like or a comment in the comment section down below. And I hope to see you all in the next episode. But until then, have a nice week.